Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another tutorial. Today we are continuing on our How to Make an Avatar series, and we are currently in the Unity part of the series. So last video we covered taking your avatar out of Blender, putting it into Unity, as well as covering some of the tools that I highly recommend that you can add on into Unity that are going to make your life quite a lot easier. We covered converting your avatar to humanoid and the important steps in that. So we covered quite a lot in the last video, but in this one we are going to start with materials and Physbones. So I'm not going to assign everything to the avatar just because that can take a while, but I want to explain just a few different ways that you can make materials and some of the things you can do on materials to kind of add a little extra like flair to your avatar, and some of the settings you can do, as well as Physbones. We'll cover the different settings and setting that up and what they do, and same thing for the Physbone colliders. So we'll cover that. I'll keep it as short as I can, and this will be the last video this week for the How to Make an Avatar series, and I'm sorry that the videos are coming out late. I have been off and on sick a lot lately, so it'll be the last one for this week. Next week I will try to have it out on Tuesday, that we will start working on toggles, and like I said last video, the toggles will be broken up into multiple different videos. I'm not sure if they'll be all in the same week or over multiple weeks, just because there are a lot of different ways to make toggles depending on what you have and how you want it to be set up. But yeah, so we'll get started on materials, and I'll explain a few different ways that you can make them and some of the fun stuff we can do. So that being said, let's get started. Okay, so this is pretty much where I left off on the avatar in the last video. I started importing some of the textures, and then I was like, well, I'll show them how to, of course, like import the textures, but like it's just drag and drop. So I went ahead and got started, just kind of zoned out working. I don't remember. Oh, that's what I was trying to find. Base color. Alright, I don't remember what I called it, so there's that. So yeah, for setting in your materials, so like this one's right here, you just go to your textures of your assets if it came with textures, and you just drag in what you need. Not all textures are gonna, depending on how you set it up, they're not gonna use everything. So yeah, you'll just kind of keep dragging it all in. So textures, leopard with red bottoms, I need this, and I need this. So like the roughness, opacity, the metallic, there's a specific way that you can set up your Poyomi materials that would use those. I personally don't. It's just how I make the materials. I don't really feel like, I mean, I know it makes a difference, but like I feel like the way that I use it, like it's perfectly fine. Like it's not super duper a noticeable difference. It's just how I prefer them, because I like the boots to be more like a slick, like kind of like leather. So I don't use like the roughness and stuff, but again, totally up to you. You do you. I don't remember the exact button. I'll see if I can find it, but as far as how you use those, there is another tutorial video I'll try to link down below by Crabman that he explains how to use those specific PNGs and like texture setups in Unity, so I'll link that below, because he covers it really well if you do want to get a little bit more detailed with your materials. But today I'm just going to kind of keep it simple, and like I said, I just prefer the boots to be like a little bit smoother, so I don't really need it. So yeah, we're just going to drag everything in, everything that we have now. Not everything is going to use a PNG material. Some things are what's used as called Matcaps, and this is one that I highly recommend. It's free. It's by Sivka. It's called Sivka's Iridescent Gems Matcap. I'll explain more what a matcap is, but as you can see, it really adds a lot to like shiny bits. I use this for glasses, which is what I'll end up using on her glasses. If you are looking for certain matcaps, Poyomi Shader has a lot of free ones in their server that you can download. You can also go on Jinxie and find some there. It was, oh no, I had a No, I didn't. No, because I used a specific texture pack. Oh, I already imported it. Duh. Never mind. So, baby hairs, piercings, tail credit. That's the hair color, which I'll end up doing multiple hair colors. I think that's it. So that's everything that has a preset texture. So just put it in, drag it in. You can make folders if you want to. So like I made a materials folder and then a PNGs folder. I keep everything here. I'll make the materials in here and then I'll scoot them over to the materials folder. You can organize it however you want to. It's really up to you. Every creator organizes our files and our Unity packages a little different. It's just kind of what works best for that creator and what they feel like is best for the avatar. To make a folder, you just right click, go to create, and then folder. You can name it whatever you want, organize it however you want. And if you're ever going through and you're like making your materials and you realize later like, oh, I want to put this in a folder, I don't remember where it is though. If you ever lose something, you can click on the mesh that has that material, and then you can right click on the material and click select material, and it'll highlight it for you. So if you don't want to make folders, or if, like I said, if you accidentally put it in the wrong folder, you can't remember where it is or something, that's how you can find it. And then once we do start using like the PNGs and stuff, they'll show up under that material, and it would be the same thing. I'll show you, but like you can right click it and hit select texture and it'll take you to where it is. So it's super easy to find materials and PNGs and everything. And the reason why I'm saying that is I don't go through and rename everything. Like this says hair base, it's really for the tail. I don't rename it just because it is super easy to find it if you ever want to edit it. And also it's super time consuming. Also, I know what things are needed where, so like there's not really a need for it in my opinion. But that's just me. Her eyes, I don't remember what color. Well, I remember what color, I don't remember what material. 4? This one? Yeah. There we go. And I'm not going to import all the different colors because I'm going to actually add a hue shift to her eyes. So instead of doing a whole bunch of different matte swaps, I'm going to do a hue shift and it will change it. Now, that being said, like I couldn't really get this brown because it's, lighter. And so sometimes like using the different textures is more optimized to do things the way you want, but I want it to stay colored all the time, so I'm going to end up just putting a hue shift on it, so I don't need all the extra ones. Yeah, I don't remember. I think I got it out of Poyomi's server, but there is this, it's called an HDR file, Studio Small. I think I found this in Poyomi's server. I think somebody linked it there. Honestly, I've had this for a very long time. I don't remember where, but this is, it's just like a Substance Painter file for like world lighting. This is what I use on all of my metal. I'll cover that. That's another setup. So, we have Matcaps. This is going to be what's called a cube map, and then we have the PNG texture. So there's a few different ways you can make materials. And like I said, if you ever want to find more Matcaps, you can always look on Jinxie, or you can join Poyomi's server, and they have a ton of stuff in there that you can use and download all for free. So there's lots and lots of different ways to get different things to set up, like metal or skin, things like that, to do pretty cool stuff. So to get started with creating a material, you right click create and then just come down to material. I'm going to name this body. Naming the materials, I would say, is where things might get help with your organization. It's not necessary, again, because you can always right click it and find it, so it's not necessary. It's super easy to find it, but if you're planning on doing a lot of edits or like matte swaps and stuff, so material swaps, so if I have like multiple different hair colors, then I'll want to rename them so it'll be a little bit easier whenever I go to make the toggles, which she will have, but I'm not going to set up everything for her today, like I said, because I don't want it to take super duper long. Just going to run you guys through a few. So we have our material made, but it's standard, so it's not really the best. It's not using Poyomi. It's kind of like the basic Unity one. So you click on standard and you go down to Poyomi. I use 8.0. Use whatever version you want. They have lots of different versions. They have Poyomi Pro, which has like all these extra features. This is just the one that I use, and I tend to always use Poyomi Tune. Outline can do some cool stuff too, but Tune, in my opinion, does everything you want, and it's the most popular, most used one. So you'll click that, and it'll change it to fit. Something that is important is, first off, Poyomi cannot be used for Quest. Quest has to use anything under this VRChat or that standard one. Like, it has to use the default ones that come with Unity and with VRChat. So I'll typically come in here and use maybe the mobile. But if you're not worrying about Quest, if you're making a PC avatar, Poyomi's totally fine. So that is one thing I wanted to throw out there. Another thing is this rendering. You want to click this down, and where it says Kohl, you want to change that back to off. So what that's doing is here on her hair, you see how you can see like through her hair, like as if there's not a hair mesh there. That's what's called the back face culling. If you see, as we turn around, we can see it. So what that is whenever the hair was made in Blender, there's these things called faces. And it's pretty much like the orientation of the mesh, I guess is the best way to explain it. But that back face cull, whenever it's back, basically means that it's only going to read the faces whenever it's facing one direction. Whenever you turn it off, you'll be able to see the mesh from both directions, both sides. So you always want to turn that off, because that will help with things like that. Because if you leave it to back, and even if you assign like a hair material, it's still going to do this. So you always want to change that to off. Rendering preset, I always change this to cutout. It helps a lot with like transparent materials. It also helps if you're setting up dissolve materials. It has to be set to cutout if you're going to do dissolve, which I'll try to make a tutorial for. But most of my avatars right now are not using dissolve, just because it's easier to set up in the way that I'm going to be doing it later, as well as it doesn't, for me personally, I like to dissolve, but takes up a lot of time, and I don't really think it's super necessary. Not anything against dissolve toggles. I love them, but like I said, it's just how I make my models. So you do whatever you want. But if you do plan on making dissolve toggles, which are super duper cool, just make sure that you have it set to cut out. So I still set it to cut out just in case, because I do want to start doing dissolves again. I just haven't been lately. But if you're not doing dissolves, you can leave it to opaque, and we'll cover transparent here in a minute. But I just changed it to cut out because it tends to help, whether you're doing dissolves or not. You extend down this color normals, and that's where you're going to start putting in your PNGs and stuff. So we're doing her body, so I'm going to take her body texture and drag it into this texture spot, and boom, there you go. So now I can take the body material, and you can tell the difference, right? Because this is an actual circle, so that's how you know it's the material, because you can't drag on the PNGs. You have to drag on the circles of the material, and ta-da, now it's added. So what I do is I'll just click that material, and Control D is duplicate in Unity, and then right click and rename. I'll name it head. And then that way I don't have to worry about setting the rendering, setting the cutout, things like that. I'll go through, just ignore that. I'll go through and I'll start editing like glitter and rim lighting, all the fun stuff that we will cover. I'll do that after I get all the materials kind of like base set up. That way I'm not having to worry about like, oh, I put color adjust and I upped the saturation, but now like, you know, right, so like if you're trying to get the face and the body to like line up or something with color, which I will have to do because they are a little bit off, I won't have to worry about that setting copying over to like her hair material, and then her hair is, you know, not the right color. So that's why I duplicate it all, just so I don't have to worry about the rendering. I don't have to worry about cutout. I can just kind of keep going, and then after that is when I change it. But again, you do you. If you want to make a new one each time, it really doesn't matter. It's just whatever works best for you. So I'm not going to make all the materials, I'm saying this 1,010 times, partially to remind myself. I just kind of want to get something going to show you guys a few different things that you can do. So I'll get her looking somewhat normal, and I'll also explain. So right here, see, like, so now no saturation. This is an alpha hair texture, right? So it means we have little like frilly bits. So with the cutout, it, you know, fixes that for me. I don't really have to worry about the alpha stuff. If I leave it on opaque, it shows up with that white. I don't know if you can see it very well. There's this white down here, so it's not really properly alpha, doing its alpha thing like we do in Blender whenever we set like the alpha hue and the alpha clip, right? It's not doing what it's supposed to. So that's why I just by default make everything cut out, because then I don't have to worry about dragging in an alpha map or anything. It'll do it for me since the hair material was created, or the PNG was created as a PNG, and that white is supposed to be transparent. So you just gotta set it to cut out. So I'm just gonna kind of leave her here for now. I'll go through and add the other stuff off stream. Just wanted to get her to a point now so that I can start showing you guys some stuff. So that explains the cutout a little bit better. Something that you can do with materials is that color adjust. So right, like her face and her body are a little off, and sometimes you might have to take it into a photo editing app and maybe mess with it that way, and I might have to. But with Poyomi, there's that really cool option of color adjust, which I swear by. So I could like down the saturation a little bit. I could up the brightness. Except see, now that's messing with her dots. So okay, that's not working. Let's try the head. Right, and you could just sit here and keep going. Which way is there we go? And you could just kind of sit here and keep editing it until you get it how you want. It's not really the most reliable method. As you can see, it's like making her face like pretty red. So for this specific avatar, I will probably end up putting it into photo editing app, maybe Be Funky. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to. But I do want to just tell you guys about the color adjust. It really just depends. I am using like a makeup texture for this avatar. But if we go to, where is it? Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Tutorial avatar. Savvy head, textures. That's not the one I wanted. I don't know if it's this one or if it's number 2, but we'll try. So if I click on her head, I take the, nope, this new one. Alright, that's the original. You can see it blends a lot better. I don't know how well you can see that. It blends like so much better. But still, that color adjust, I don't have to use it all the time, but it could help. Right, like from a front perspective, that looks just a little bit better to kind of match her face. But I don't know, it's just like little tiny tweaks that you can do. I just kind of wanted to let you guys know about that. Just because it is something that I use every now and then, it is really helpful. But sometimes, especially whenever you use these makeup textures, see, they change the skin color, so it's a little bit more pale. So it's something that I might need to go through and edit in a photo editing app. But I'm wondering if this one, no, that one's a little too dark. Yeah. So anyways, I'll go through and I'll end up editing the body texture, the face texture off stream. But I did want to tell you guys about the color adjust just so that you guys knew about it. So that's adding like your typical like PNG materials. There's also the Matcap materials, which is like the one for the glasses. Which I'll go ahead if I remember where I saved it. There it is. Let's see. I like this one. I like that one. I lied. You can always delete ones you don't want. So anyways, I'm going to just duplicate one of these. I'm going to rename it glasses. I'm going to toggle on her glasses and show you guys a little bit about this. Where is it? I'm going to just toss that on for now. I'm going to set this to transparent. And I'm going to remove the texture. Okay. So for setting up Matcaps, you want your texture to be empty. It doesn't have to be set to transparent. It just is. I'll show you how I do like leather here in just a second. But you're going to come down to shading, and you're going to toggle on. So check mark the Matcap spot, and then you can drag in your Matcap, kind of like a PNG. That one's like super dark. So ta-da! And so now you can see her glasses have like that little like shine to it, which is really cool. I think it's this one. No. It's been a minute since I've messed with this. There we go. So if you come up to the color and normals and you click on the color bar, this A is the alpha. So this is what makes it transparent. So you can make it like super transparent. You can make it like barely transparent. Probably gonna leave her right about there. So that way it looks more like glasses now. So it's see-through like glasses, but it still has like that little bit of like a cool shine to it. And you don't have to use this specific Matcap one. It's just ones that I used. And you don't even have to use Matcap if you didn't want to. You know, you could just color it. Let's say we want her to have like some like sunglasses. Alright, so you could just color it and then drag down. You could do both. That might be what I do. And so in the Matcap, I can change the emission strength, which is how bright it is, and you do want to be careful with that because it is very sensitive. Change the intensity. You can do like the replace blend is what's all the way up. That's like how much is it going to replace this base color. Multiply is going to make it darker. Add, make it lighter, right? Kind of like typical art stuff, but you can also do the border, and that's going to change, like, if you watch it down here, like how much of it's going to show. So that gives it like more of like a full rainbow look versus this like kind of like slanted rainbow, if that makes sense. So you can kind of play around with these settings if you want. I am going to change the intensity by a hair, and maybe the emission strength by a hair. That's not quite enough. There we go. Something like that's kind of how I personally am going to leave it. Maybe make this just a little bit wider. Went the wrong direction. So now she has these like sunglasses that have just like the very slight little like shine to them. Just kind of gives it a little bit more depth to the avatar. So that's how you can set up glasses using like Matcaps and doing alphas and transparent. So I wanted to cover that with you guys. You can do regular Matcaps, so we'll call this like leather. And I'm going to make it not opaque, put it back to cutout. And I'm going to come down here to Matcap. I'm going to click this little dot in between the picture and the word Matcap. I'm going to search Matcap. And these right here are all the Matcaps that come with Unity. These are just the default free ones that are automatically a part of it, that you can use. There's all kinds of really cool ones that you can do, which I'm actually going to delete this because I'd rather show you guys. So I'm going to create a new one, new material, leather, Poyomi, oh no, I didn't mean to click that. No, I didn't mean to click that either. Okay, unlock shader. Locking your shader means you can't touch it. So Matcap, cutout, rendering off. Okay. I wanted it to like be at its like normal settings because that's typically how I have it. I don't. I'm like, oh, rude. Matcap. There we go. So let's say for the collar, because it doesn't have a material. Where is it? Right, so like you could do something like this to kind of give something like a metal look, like you could add that to the chain. It's just not going to be shiny. I don't know if I have any, where am I? Pictures. She might be a good example. YouTube's gonna yell at me so hard for this. Okay, like right here, you see this on her gold assets, how it kind of has that like literal shine. This is a picture from in-game. So if you do something like that with like this, like just a Matcap, it's not gonna shine like that. It'll look pretty, it's just not gonna be sparkle. And some people don't like the big sparkle. So if you do want like metal and you don't want it to shine like that, Matcap's your way to go. I love it, I swear by it. If you want the shiny, then we'll get to that here in a minute. Now, I will say I've read a lot in the Poyomi server. A lot of them are smarter than me, obviously, and they do realistic lighting. So they do it like when you move to a darker part of the world, it's actually going to get darker, and when you go to a lighter part, like they do a lot of realistic lighting. Matcaps are not realistic lighting. They're not realistic, but they do move, as you can see. Depending on how you view it. That's why I like Matcaps, because I'm not smart enough to set up the realistic stuff, but it still adds a little bit of something to it, in my opinion. So for this, like, I'll normally use this one or this one and kind of edit it from there to make like a kind of a leather look. They have all kinds of ones that you can use that do some really fun stuff. So just kind of play around with it. To see which ones that you like. I think I'm going to use this one for now, just for an example. And again, you can mess with the intensity. Something that I do want to say, over here in your hierarchy, if you click directional light and turn it off. Now, granted, something I don't think a lot of people understand is avatars. If you do know how to set up the lighting properly, you can set it up to where it's going to look better in like all worlds, but world lighting is very, very finicky, very specific. I have created a world once before and I set up the lighting horrible and everything was too dark. There are a lot of amazing world creators that have set up the lighting beautifully and it works wonderfully, but it is still finicky sometimes, and whether they're a known world creator or a brand new world creator, sometimes world lighting will make the avatar look a little different. It might make like the face brighter and the body and stuff like that. Something to help with that is turning off directional light here in Unity, and you can see what it's going to look like when it's not in direct light. So whenever it is in a darker part of the world, it would look more like this if the lighting is set up properly in the world and on the avatar. But again, I'm not super familiar with how to set up like realistic lighting to kind of flow with that better in worlds and stuff. So if you're wanting to look how to do that, I'm not the one to tell you how. I'm not very sure about it. I've never been very good at it. But I will say I tend to turn off directional lighting. It helps a lot with emissions. Like her glasses, they're a little dark for me, right? So I can click them, I can come down here, go back to Matcap, and I can up that emission strength. So now whenever she's in the dark, her glasses will shine just a little bit more, right? So there's things like that that can help with world lighting and stuff that I recommend is just turning off the directional light, keeping that in mind when you're messing with your materials. like this emission strength here, just know if you crank it up and you go into a dark world, that's going to be bright, because this isn't Unity, this isn't in VRChat. So you got to understand that the emission, you know, kind of find a sweet spot to it. And you can always upload and test your avatar and jump into a few different worlds and see if you feel like things are too bright, or, you know, the intensity is too much, maybe you want it lower or whatever. So just kind of keep that in mind while you're making your materials. So I personally am going to change this because I don't like it anymore. I like this one. We're going to go with this one now. So again, with it being leather, I don't really want... I'm going to turn this back on just because I don't want it to be dark right now. And then I'm also going to turn on rim lighting, which is down here. Now rim lighting, and watching it on your actual avatar, of course, obvious, super helpful. I feel like it's also helpful to watch it down here, just so you can actually see like the base material, because that is going to be wrapped around your mesh, your asset. So as you can see, rim lighting is lighting around the rim, but you can do invert, and now it's inside. So if we do width and go whoop, make it a bit smaller, and then I can change the sharpness. I don't know if you can see that super well. It's like a straight dot and it's like a blurry dot. And then there's power, right? And then there's emission. And again, how bright it's going to be. Mix base color, I swear by this one. Especially whenever I'm adding like rim lighting to her body to kind of give it like a little bit of like a sweaty look, almost like that little bit of like a shine. I'll do mix base color because that's trying to match the color that you've chosen, to the base, so it blends a little bit easier. So that instead of like having like a white dot floating around on her body, you could use a little bit of that mixed base color. And you can also play with the blend mode, the brightness, blend strengths, like just play around with the settings to get it how you want. But then you could keep changing that to where it kind of blends in a little bit with her skin, but it still shows that there's a little bit of shine, and it just kind of helps you get, you know, exactly what you're wanting. So kind of up it like that. Oh. So as you can see, like now whenever we move it across, it's got that kind of like shine to it, and that's what I'm kind of looking for her to have like a little bit of like a leather, but it isn't very bright. Again, check your lighting. So I'm gonna go, where is it, emission, just up a hair. Let's do, there's all kinds of different settings, just play with it. Honestly, there's not one that like I really do like each time per se. I honestly just kind of play with it every time I go to make an avatar to kind of figure out exactly what I think looks best on that avatar. I think a lot of creators probably do the same thing. Just because each avatar, you know, maybe has like a different... Yeah, I like that. That looks more like leather to me. So her bathing suit's also going to be using that. Her pentagram harness is not, and her boots are not. Those are different materials. So there we go. This is bright as hell. And see, that's something else you want to keep in mind is like, okay, I've put it on her bodysuit, but now that rim lighting is like, I don't really like how it's literally making like little nipples on it. I don't like that. I just don't really feel like there's a way around it. And see, oh, I've seen some amazing, I think Daddy Issues is the one that I first noticed doing this. They would put rim lighting on their avatars, and do like this like really pretty like red rim lighting around the body. So pretty. So just like genuinely, like I can't stress it enough, like play with it. Just, you know, play with everything so that you can kind of get it to, you know, place that you like. So like you could do that and like have it, like she could like quite literally be like glowing. Like there's just all kinds of fun stuff you could do. I think it's really fun. So like this is what I'm talking about. Like I'll invert it. I'll up the, where is it? Mix base color. I'll set it more to like a skin tone-ish kind of a color. I'll down the width and the sharpness. And maybe a little bit of the power. I think I like replaced better. It's probably not final, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Like now she has like a little cute little shine, but and then like I did like the opposite thing here on the bodysuit. But I think I'm gonna just leave it just like that. I like that better. But it is a little bit dark, so I'm going to up. And you can do this hide and shadow thing. You could do like multiply blend. Just makes very slight changes. Lots of fun stuff you could do. So anyways, I got sidetracked, but that's setting up Matcap materials. So there's the PNG materials, there's Matcap materials, transparent materials, and then the last one is like the shiny. So I have this, which is what's called a cube map, except it doesn't import like that. So I click it, you go to texture type, default, texture shape. Click on 2D and change it to cube, and then just hit apply. Again, I think I found this in Poyomi's server, but I don't remember for sure. But I know that it's a Substance Painter thing, because I've seen it in Substance Painter too. So anyways, it's going to change something like this. It looks like a material. It's not. Alright, keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and make a metal material. Uncheck mark Matcap. Okay. And then instead, right here, just a little bit below Matcap, check mark cube map. And then I'm going to drag that into the spot that says cube map. And it looks like this. So now whenever I apply it, look at that. Shiny metal. And again, that's what's going to give it that type of a shine. You can see it kind of here on the GIF a little bit too. And here, oh god. But yeah, you can see like on I'm pointing like as if you can see my hand. Here it's versus what in the GIF, it's all about lighting and angle. I like the shiny bit for that reason. It's not always just going to be like bright in your face. It's depending on how the light's hitting it and the direction that you're looking at it. But, oof. I don't like that. I lied, go away. I changed my mind. I had to fix that. So anyways, you don't have to do it. You can set it up with just Matcap. You can set it up as just a flat texture. You could set it up with, you know, the gym Matcaps. Do whatever you want. I've just wanted to show you guys what cube map was. It's a little bit different. And again, you can still come through and edit. You can do the emission strength, the color strength, hide and shadow, replace. You can do whatever you want. I just leave it default just because that's what I like. But you assign it to... another one of those. You assign it to, you know, whatever you feel like is best. So I'm going to fix this real quick, and then we will move on to the Physbones portion. keychain. And, yeah, like, see, she's, like, literally, like, already almost done. She still has a lot more that I need to add, but, I'll do that off stream. So, you know, go through and just kind of keep editing it. I'm going to have to end up taking her body or her head into photo editing app, but a lot of times, more often than not, that color adjust can be a big lifesaver and really help, but it's also where you're going to set up Hue Shift, but we'll cover that whenever we do toggles. Oh, I apologize. Had to yawn. But yeah, it's just not quite working out for that texture. So I'm going to run you guys through Physbones real quick, and then that will be the end of this tutorial since it's getting a little long. So let's say you've got all your materials set up, you're ready to do your bones, and you can set up your avatar in whatever order you want. You don't have to do materials before bones. You don't have to do anything like that. I just prefer doing materials first. That way I can see how she looks. I will say you do want to make sure you do your materials before toggles, because obviously your toggles are going to need to know what materials, like especially if you're doing like dissolve or matte swaps, it needs to know what it's, you know, working with. So, but you could do Physbones first if you want. I just don't do it that way. So I'm going to do her chest and her hair because there's two things I want to show you guys. So let's go ahead and do her chest. Hello? Spine? Chest. There we go. Let's do her chest. So fun fact, instead of doing it each individually, you can shift click and assign it at the same time. So you do add component, just type in Physbone, it's right there, it'll pop up. You know that it's working when there's a little white line. See those little lines in her chest? So that means that the bone is applied. Pull and spring, kind of self-explanatory. Pulls like almost like the delay on like how fast it falls or moves. Spring, how fast is it going to move back to its original position? And then gravity, of course, gravity. Immobile and limits. I don't really mess with immobile too much. Limits are something I do want to show you guys. Now, I will say, I thought I had updated my SDK, but apparently not, so I'll have to do that. But SDK recently came out with Physbones, which are currently not uploaded. I will try to get that for maybe next video before we move on to toggles to do Physbones. But it's the same. I mean, it's all pretty self-explanatory. You know how much squish, how much stretch, things like that, that you can play with. Really, there's not really a lot to know about what all the different things do. It's just kind of playing with it to figure out, you know, get it to what settings you like. I normally drag this down and this up just as a base, and I'll show you how we can test it. But this is what I do want to show you guys for like the chest and the boobs, stomach, things like that. Things that don't need to be moving past a certain spot is this limits. I suggest changing it to angle. As you can see, it popped up these like little like cylinder things. And this is going to be that area, that circumference of that circle, really going way back to school. Think of that line as like the spring, like, so it's not going to go any lower than here. It's not going to go any higher than here. So if you have it like this, her chest is going to jiggle like this. Now, if you have it like this, they're going to flop, you know, like this, right? So the reason why I suggest this is way back when I first started avatar creation, I didn't know that this was a thing. And so her chest would always, like, the mesh would, like, fold back into her body when somebody would move really fast. So if you're running across a world, she'd get, like, chestless because the mesh quite literally with the bones would double back into the body because it was moving so fast. Adding this limit to the angle is what stops that, because it's going to tell it, hey, you can't go back. So took me a long time to figure that out, unfortunately. So I wanted to share it with you guys. This collision radius, normally like 0.0001. You might have to add more zeros, less zeros, but it's going to open up this little like cylinder, and that's the colliders. So it's not quite the colliders that are going to, like for the hair that won't go into body. We'll cover that in a minute. These are colliders for like when your hand touches it, especially with Physbones. So with dynamic bones, we used to have to add colliders to everything. So we'd have to add colliders to the hands to make it interact. With Physbones, it's already done. They did some smart, fancy stuff. I don't know. Don't ask me. But this will be basically how the Physbones interact. So if you go and you put your hand on her chest or something, like, it'll now move. Same thing with her hair. That's how you move Physbones in VRChat, is by colliders. So you always want to make sure, if you want it to be interacted with, so like, this like grabbing and posing that Physbones can do, if you want somebody to be able to like grab your tail, it needs to have this collision on it, because what it's doing is it's telling that hand that area of that collider is what can be grabbed. So whenever somebody like goes to grab your tail or your ears or something on your avatar, they're grabbing that collider. So play with the radius. You can make it as big as you want, small as you want. Just understand that it's not really going to interact until the mesh hits that collider spot, if that makes sense. So I normally keep them kind of small because I don't want, like, every time you go to like fix your headset or something and her hand comes up, I don't want it to like send her chest like flying. So I personally, like I said, I just kind of throw on some numbers and then I'll edit it from there. So one way that I suggest is you go into play mode. It'll take a minute. Eventually. Someday. Maybe. Hello? Unity? Okay. I don't know why oh no! Sorry. It worked, finally. It does take a while. I think there's some add-ons that you can put in that make it not do this, and some settings you can change. I don't know what they are, though. But if it shows like this is why the main camera exists, is so that it would show up like this. So you can move the camera if you want. I just prefer to just click over here on the scene, because then I can still move around freely. Versus with the camera, if like this, like, you can't, right? You wouldn't be able to move. So you come over to scene, and you can click on your avatar. See, her Physbones are still there. Now I can move, and I can see how they're going to move in game. So then I can sit here and fiddle with it and be like, okay, I actually want them to pull a little bit more, spring a little bit less. Click on her again. Okay, now they're a little bit more bouncy. And you can always move this. This is why some people move it, so that you don't have to like drag your mouse across. I don't know why I do this to myself. No. So you don't have to drag your mouse across. And you can click them individually and do them. I just do them at the same time, just so I don't really have to mess with it. And just kind of fiddle with it until you get it how you want. Something else that is very helpful, if you click on your avatar and Control D to duplicate again, I had that one, and I'll show you what to do as far as like, oh, but I've messed with it in play mode now. What, like, we'll take care of that. Come here. Yeah, there it is. I am dragging in a basic walk animation. Jinxie, I would recommend searching on there. I think I got these out of Matcaps server or Boo server or Dogu. Those are the three that I know have posted animations for. Nessie in her server has some posted as well. They're kind of floating around everywhere. You can always search them up online. They're just little free animations. I think Unity store has some too. But this is how people do the walking showcase in Unity that you see sometimes. And that's another great way to test your Physbones. Because granted, people in full body don't necessarily just walk for miles in VR, but you can still kind of get a more realistic look at how the Physbones are going to move. So if you duplicate your avatar, and the reason that's important is duplicating your avatar, you never, ever, ever, ever want to put a controller on your avatar. Don't do it. It's bad. There's a few tutorials I've watched that say to put the controller on the avatar. Occasionally it won't break it, but more often than not, it runs a really good risk of breaking it, and your avatar will get stuck in the preview pose, like it's like riding a bike down in the ground. Sometimes it'll get stuck in T-pose, so it's always a good idea to duplicate the avatar and then run the controller on that duplicate just in case it does break. Then your actual avatar isn't broken, it was just a copy of it. So anyway, if you have a walking animation, you just drag it straight on top. Ta-da, now she's walking. Granted, this isn't like the dude walking animation. Let me see if I have that one so we can properly look at it. Aha. Better. So I'm gonna delete this one, duplicate it again and show it, and now there you go. So there's all kinds of ones. There's like that one. There's this shukta. I don't remember what I think this is the one that most people are from. Oh no, this one's corrupt. My files got corrupt not too long ago. I'll have to find it again. So anyways. But yeah. So you can kind of get a gist for how it's going to look. I don't know why it keeps freezing though. Hold on. I'm determined. We're going to figure this out. But something important while I'm trying to figure out this walking animation thing. If you make changes, there we go. If you I think my files all got corrupt. I had a storm hit my computer not too long ago, and a lot of my files got disappeared from my computer, and I had to recover them, and ever since then some of them broke. So anyways, my point still stands. You can put a walking animation on the avatar, you can watch her walk, and you can test your Physbones from there. If you change anything in play mode, it will not save. So if you come in, you'll notice the numbers that we changed earlier are back to how it was before we went into play mode. I think it was something like this before I left play mode. So if you do any changes in play mode, it does not automatically copy over. The only thing that does copy over for some odd reason is emissions on materials, which I'll cover that here in a minute because I forgot that earlier. But it's still a very good habit to get in, that whenever you make changes and you're like, okay, this is how I like it, I've got it set how I want. That's the great thing about play mode, is because you can sit here and you can test, and you can get it to sit here and mess with the numbers to get it to be exactly how you want it to be. Which I think we did something like that, and then good jiggle. It's not really my favorite jiggle, but so we've got it set how we want, right? So you'll click on, you can't have them both selected, it won't work. Just one of them, just click one and come over here to your Physbone. These three little dots, click that and click copy component. Now whenever we leave, see, everything undid itself. You can hold on, because I forgot that was a duplicate. Hold on. Tutorial. Now I can select both, come to the three dots, paste component values. Don't paste it as new, because that's going to put two things of Physbones on there, and that can cause a lot of issues. Paste component values, and see it auto put in all the changes that I had made. So that's something very important whenever you're doing Physbones and stuff, is if you go into play mode to mess with anything, just make sure you copy it, so that whenever you leave play mode, you can keep the settings that you did. You don't have to write it down or anything, or take screenshots, or try to remember a bunch of numbers. But you can only do that one at a time. So I can't copy the components in play mode for the boob bones and the butt bones and the tail and expect it to be able to do all three if they're all different numbers. It has to be one at a time. So there is that about Physbones. I'll show you guys colliders real quick, and then I'll do a quick example of emissions and glitter, because I forgot that, and I'm sorry this tutorial is long. Colliders. So just click down here, empty, right click, do create empty. I'm going to rename this head collider. Okay. The reason we're putting this on an empty, I will explain in a minute. So I've renamed it head collider. It is quite literally nothing. There is nothing happening. If you come over here to add component and do Physbone collider, now there's something. Why is it not at 0? I don't know. Just change its position back to 0. Okay. I typically do a capsule. You can do a sphere. You can, do whatever works best for you. And then I'm just dragging the radius and the height. So between 0.8 and 0.4, so like 6 maybe. The height's a little long, something like that. Right? Now, you can click it like you want to in Blender. But, Unity. And then you come, and then it does, right? So I don't recommend clicking it. So unfortunately, stop it. Okay. So unfortunately with Unity, we can't quite look at it the same way we do in Blender, but just kind of swerve around and kind of get it positioned. I normally try to match it around her forehead. It don't gotta be perfect. And again, it's something we can always edit. Just kind of get it in her head as much as you can. And then let's say neck, head, hair root. And this is why, if you remember, if you watched the Blender tutorials, I said that I didn't get rid of that hair root. It's because it's so much freaking cleaner and I like it. But it technically does add an extra bone. So I'm going to do all those. Throw on some numbers. With hair, it doesn't really need a limit type. What I do instead is just a very, 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 very small amount of gravity so that whenever her head turns, and I'll show you guys what I mean, it won't just stick out. And then here is where we do the collision. So this isn't, well, at our little point, whatever, but this is where you add your colliders. So right now there's only one. But let's say we might have a head, neck, shoulder, chest, however many there are. You'll add that number, and then you can drag them from here into where it says element, or you can click that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Or you can click that little dot over here, and it'll pull up anything that's a collider. Either way is fine. So you'll assign that collider. Now, something that I will say is important, I think, is adding colliders before you go into play mode, because if you add it during play mode, the Physbones won't register the collider. So if you add it before play mode and then go into play and test the Physbones, then it's already registering the collider, so then you can kind of test it at the same time as the Physbones and make sure everything's exactly how you want it. So, and as you can see, I'll show you guys, no gravity with a bit of gravity. So keep in mind, the more gravity, it's going to pull those bones quite literally down to the ground. And if you go below, it's going to float. And I'm at point, like, just barely anything. And that's kind of more so the... so annoying. That's the original fluff of the hair as far as how it sticks out. I could do 0.01 and you can see it's kind of already changing it. So just keep that in mind if you do add gravity. The reason I add it is if I go to head, do you see what I mean? Ignore the floating pieces, but like, right, so if you're in VR and you turn your head, if we don't have gravity on, see the hair kind of like sticks out sideways. So it's just a preference on if you want to add it or not. And you can always figure out how much you want to add. Just know that the more you add it, it's going to drag the hair kind of down. But if you add it, it'll help with like, I guess like the realism is a good word. Oops. So let's look at, and I will tell you why it's floating in a sec. Well, I'll go ahead and do that right now. It's floating because I'm stupid. I accidentally left off the head collider. Drag it onto your armature. Super important. Armature, right here. Don't drag it on where it says head down here. It has to be on the armature. So now it will actually follow the head. So if we started moving her without assigning that head collider, it's going to act like a collider in a world. So you have to add it to your armature for it to actually follow your avatar to properly work. So now we can start moving her. It's really flowy, very pretty. We like it. We like it. And as you can see, the hair at the back isn't clipping through like her eye sockets or something because we added that collider. Now, I'm still probably going to go through and like add like a neck, maybe extend the head collider down to her chin, a neck, shoulder, chest. That way it's not clipping through her chest like that. And I don't know how well you can see it, but like these like strands right here aren't clipping through her head. Again, because of the collider. So that's why colliders are important, is it helps it not clip through. I mean, it's not like gonna break your avatar if you don't have collider or something. It just helps, again, like with the realism, and just making it look prettier, I guess is a good word. My favorite thing is on like ponytails and hairs that have bangs, is you can kind of play with that collider, and that's again why I put it kind of out on the forehead, so that whenever the avatar moves, the bangs won't clip inside the forehead. So that's how you add colliders. That's how you test colliders and Physbones. Super pretty, super flowy. Ta-da. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you glitter and emissions super duper quick, because I forgot. So on the body, let's say we want her spots to have an emission. So we want it to be colored, we want it to move, we want it to be pretty. On the body material, come down to Special FX, and then check mark emission. And I will say, some creators, again, actually a lot of creators are smarter than me, but some creators have figured out how to do like a gazillion emissions, and I'm not that smart. This is very much a basics tutorial series, just to kind of get you started, and then you can look more into advanced stuff. For me, I don't know how to do all the extra stuff. So if I put red, okay, and I assign Hue Shift. Oh, I was like, why isn't it working? Okay. I'm really tired. I'm sorry. Emission strength. Obviously, it will not work until you up the emission strength. But this is for her whole body. But it's just for an example for now. So, let me turn off lighting again, because you can see emissions best when it's dark. That's kind of what emissions are. So I normally do them when lighting's off. So if I turn it on and I have Hue Shift for this emission, okay, but then I go and I put the same emission 0 on her eyes, even if, sorry, I didn't want to cough in you guys' ears, even if there are two different meshes, since it's using the same emission, even if I don't put, you know, the Hue Shift on her eyes material, since it's using emission 0 and this one has Hue Shift, anytime that this Hue Shift gets activated, it'll do it on her eyes. So if you're wanting to do like Hue Shifts and stuff like that, you'll want it to be on separate. That's why there's 4 options, 0, 1, 2, 3. So, you know, if we're going to do Hue Shift on her for her tattoos, but we also want it for her eyes will need to go on emission 1 so that the Hue Shifts stay separate. So I'm going to just take that off for now. With this, you want an emission map. So it came with a tail right here. It's called emission. If you don't have an emission map, you want to make it. Basically, you're just blacking out everything that you don't want to be affected and leaving white what you do. So that's why there's her tail. It's got all the pretty colors, and it's, you know, this is how it actually looks. But the emission is just the spots. I don't think I have one for her body. Maybe. Aha! I love the creator. They made me one. They're amazing. So they made an emission file. Rude. Hello? So they made one. So you'll just drag that into where it says emission map. And that map is quite literally a map for where the mission goes. The best way I can explain it. So it's going to assign it, instead of her whole body, it's going to assign it just to where the white spots are, which are the spots on her body. So yeah, and then we could do like an emission mask. This is where I like to add like Matcaps. As you can see, instead of it going all on it, it's reading where the color is on that picture that you added. So you could add Matcaps, you could do noise, which is really cool. And I'll show you what that can do here in just a second. So there's a few different things you can play with as far as the mask goes. And you have like this like center out, blinking, scrolling, like you have all these different options. And you can kind of see it, but I'll show you. This is how people make emissions move. And I wish I had a video of my personal, as she has it, but we'll kind of show you guys. Right, so like, but see, now it's applying it to her whole body for some reason. I don't know why. But you could do, it's just kind of, you know, it's kind of hard to explain like how to know what it does. You kind of don't. You just kind of know. But see, because this isn't covering all of it, it's not gonna. So you can kind of play with it. You can just leave this blank, and it'll sit there and do it. Now, if you do something like center out, oh, stop with all the clicking. I don't know why it's applying to her whole body. It shouldn't, but let's try. There we go. So if I put the mask and the map, right, and then you could sit here and you can mess with the speed. Obviously you could do like multiple things, just kind of play around with these, but this is how people make emissions move. And then something that you do want to do, you don't really have to, just for safety, I like to right click it and hit animated when locked. That's really more so for stuff like if you're animating like ears and tails, or a Hue Shift, especially Hue Shift. I do both just because I'm paranoid. There it goes. This basically ensures that whenever the material is locked, anything that's supposed to animate, so like we're supposed to be able to control this. We're going to put this on a radial later on when we make our toggles, so that in game somebody can sit here on a radial menu and change the hue shift of that emission. But if it's locked and it doesn't have this little A by it, you won't be able to change it. Even if you made the toggle for it, even if you made the animations, it won't work. You have to right click it and hit animated when locked. And that tells Unity, okay, the rest of the material is locked in place. Like this is how the material is supposed to be. But this one spot we need to be able to change in game. And that's how a lot of people will do some of the really cool stuff. They'll do like some of the shading. They'll do like light data and shading, matcap, rim reflections. They'll do all this different stuff that you can control, like emission strength in game, brightness in game, so that if you go into a super dark world, you can control how your avatar looks. Not going to get into it all because it's, again, all kind of self-explanatory, but if you want to make a radial that's going to control something on a material, like the emission strength or something, right? It doesn't have to just be Hue Shift. If you want to be able to control this, just right click it, animate it when it's locked, right? And yeah, and then you can sit here and you can fiddle with this. Now this is, like I said, with Physbones, colliders, anything like that, anything else in Unity, you need to make sure to copy the components. Still best habit to go ahead and do it even if you're working on emissions. Just go ahead and hit copy just to be safe. But for some reason, emissions are the one thing that if you leave play mode, it sticks. I don't know why. But still make it a habit to copy it just to be safe, just in case it doesn't work. Kind of the same thing applies with glitter. I saw somebody in another server asking how people got the body glitter. I don't know where I have it saved, but I have my settings saved specifically. But oh, and you can add glitter to your tattoos by throwing on a mask. right? So you could assign it to whatever specific spot you want. If you went on a whole body, you could do that. Now, somebody I think in the server that I was looking at said that they didn't want it on the whole body. They wanted it only on like specific spots. So like I think they were working on the face and they didn't want it on the lips or the eyelids or something like that, or vice versa. They didn't want it on the face, but they did want it on the eyelids and the lips. That's when you need to make an emission mask. Again, black out everything you don't want, leave white what you do. You'd have to do that in a different photo editing app. But with glitter, for the body, I don't remember my settings. That's the opposite direction. I think I did it something like that, I think. I'm trying to remember. Okay, just a second. Let me put you guys on the screen and drag this over. Okay, I'm gonna look up. I did that because I have DMs open and I didn't want to put everyone on blast. We're not talking about anything bad. I just want to be respectful of people's privacy. But I think I have my pinned messages. Yes. So these are the settings. They're outrageous settings just because I don't remember. I don't remember the more appropriate settings. Wait. Whoa, I'm so wrong. Jitter is set to 1. Speed 0. 0.1. Oh. 1.5. 192. 0. 0.4. 306. Okay. Yes. Yes. These are the settings that I had saved at some point. You're more than welcome to use them if you want, but as you can see, it very, 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 very small. That's why that number is so high. Dots. And this is where use surface color can come into play. So instead of it being white or red or pink or orange or whatever, which could look really freaking pretty, but if you're wanting it to look more like skin, to kind of like mimic a skin texture, that's when surface color can come into play, and just leave it on white. And it's very small. I don't know how well you can see it on the tutorial, but it blends in with the skin a little bit better. And that's how a lot of people are doing this. This is just my settings. Everyone has their own settings, but you're welcome to use those numbers if you want. And then sometimes I'll still come in and be like, okay, I really want the max brightness down or the minimum brightness up. You could do glitter bias, which is like how much is it showing. I leave mine at like 0.3, which I think for her is just a little high. We're gonna come down a little bit. Size you can still play with. You can do, one of my avatars I did it all the way up to 1, and it added this kind of shine, which looks a lot like rim lighting. It was just oddly smoother, but it does leave like these little like dots. But depending on how you're setting up your avatar, it can be really cool to do that. You can turn it all the way down so that they're like super tiny and spread out. But yeah, you just kind of play with it until you get it how you want it to be. And then yeah, now you've made glitter on the body to kind of reflect. Now Panda Bear has some matte caps for skin textures that are really cool that you can use, that would actually give it more of like a true rigid like skin texture look. But if you're trying to get that like glitter body look, this is how people do it, is you just make the glitter kind of outrageous. And then ta-da. And this is also why I suggest testing your emissions and stuff in and out of directional lighting. So in big lighting, like typical bright worlds, you'll kind of be able to see a little bit of a shimmer. And then in dark worlds is when you'll really be able to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and end the tutorial here. It's a bit of a long tutorial. I really need to make an ending screen. But yeah, so we've covered materials, adding PNGs, adding Matcap materials, transparent materials, Hue Shift, emissions, glitter, metal, testing Physbones, adding colliders. Lots and lots of stuff covered in today's video. I'm sorry that it was such a long video, but like I said, Unity is where the part of avatar creation, I think, gets a lot more complicated, because there's a lot more technical stuff to set up. There's a lot more detail that goes into it. Granted, a lot of detail can go into Blender, especially whenever you start getting into like custom body sculpts, face sculpts, and stuff like that. But all the technical stuff of what you use on the avatar in game is what is done in Unity. So all your material swaps, your hair swaps, your hue shifts, your toggles, any fun props, things like that, everything of that is done in Unity. So I will try to keep my next Unity tutorials under 30 to 45 minutes, but sorry, this one's a bit longer. It takes a long time to set up materials. As you can see, I'm not done yet with her. I still want to add different hair colors. I still got to add her ears, boots. I have to add all the hue shifts. I got to edit the face. So lots and lots of work left to be done. I'm just going to play around with the tattoos and figure out an emission that I like for that. So, but I did want to show you guys all the different like little things you can do with setting up your materials, so that way you guys had a good range of different options and cool little tricks that I've personally learned over the past year to kind of get you guys started. I would suggest and recommend joining Poyomi's server. They can help you if anything goes wrong, but they also have, like I said, a lot of really cool Matcaps and tricks and all this cool stuff that you can do with their shader that I think would be really helpful if you want to learn more in-depth and more advanced material making, or if you want to learn more advanced lighting. They would probably be the best place to reach out for help. Other than that, as always, if you guys have any questions, please let me know down below. And you're always welcome to reach out in my server and ask for questions there. If you have any tutorials that you would like to see after the How to Make an Avatar series, you can let me know that down below or in my server as well, as always too. I'm going to try to get out some extra tutorials here pretty soon while still making the How to Make an Avatar series. But if anything, it'll be after. I've got lots of stuff planned for stuff how to make, and people have been asking for new things in my server as well. So I will try to get those tutorials out to you guys. Just please bear with me, and I appreciate y'all's patience so far. It's just difficult trying to do avatars, tutorials, and commissions all at once. So I greatly, greatly appreciate y'all's patience. I will say real quick, I've noticed a lot of people have been saying that my mic was super low on some of my first tutorials I ever made. That's because I didn't have a very good mic at the time. But I have gone back on my computer, on my boyfriend's computer, on my phone. I'm able to hear it really well on my end without any issue, but some people are saying that they're having trouble hearing me. If that's the case, just double check and make sure that you have YouTube volume all the way up and your headphone volume. I know for me it's different with the headphones that I use. Some people have said that they've done that and they still have issues. So I will try after the How to Make an Avatar series to go back and re-record those. But if you're going back and watching this series or any of my other tutorials and you're having any difficulties hearing me, you're more than welcome to ask questions. I won't be able to explain everything in the comments on the YouTube section because I do have a character limit. And these tutorials are 30 minutes long of me just ranting, so it's going to be a lot to try to type out. So if you ever have any questions, I encourage you guys to join my server. Feel free to reach out to me there. And that way I can make like a quick little video explaining for you personally there, or I have Nitro, of course, so I can, use quite a lot of character count and explain things that way. So yeah, I just wanted to offer, I am sorry for the audio issues on some of the older tutorials. This new mic has been very helpful in these new tutorials, so just wanted to kind of add that in here, and apologize for any audio issues on the older ones, and let you guys know that you're always welcome to reach out to me, and I will try to redo them at some point. And I think that is it. So for the next week, have fun making your missions and your materials, and next week I'll do my best to have it out on Tuesday, and we will start delving into toggles, and I'll try to cover as much as I can for you guys, but like I said, there are a lot of different ways to do toggles depending on what you're wanting to do, so it might be broken up over a few weeks, but that will probably be close to the last little bit of the avatar that we need to do other than facial expressions. So I'll try to, have the series wrapped up within the next 3 weeks or so, but bear with me because there's a lot of different ways to do different things, and I want you guys to have as many tools as possible. So yeah, I think that's everything. I'm kind of rambling. I'm sorry, I tend to do that at the end of my videos. If you have any questions, like I said earlier, just let me know. And other than that, I hope you have a great day.